to commit first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
And you can see the Markell family filing in there right now. That's Dan Markell's mother, Ruth, and his father, Phil. Of course, Markell, 11 years ago this past July, gunned down in his Benton Hills driveway here in Tallahassee.
And a lot of times once they get that notice that a verdict has been reached, of course, they make sure to bring everybody into the courtroom. So again, the jury's not there until they make sure all the family is there for both sides, of course, the state and the defense, and then they will bring the jury in to give that verdict.
So now we're just waiting for, of course, the judge to arrive, and then after him, of course, the jury of 12 will file into the courtroom. It was a lengthy trial, one that lasted 8 days of testimony, about 38 witnesses between both sides, and the fourth trial in this case. As I mentioned, 11 years. It's a case that's captured the nation's attention. And do we have the judge here? Not yet. Okay. Just wanted to check. But of course, something we've been following closely for years. Okay, there is the judge. That's Judge Everett. Let's see if we can listen in.
Whatever the verdict will be in the case, I do not want there to be any gesturing or anyone making any movements that we either agree or disagree with the verdict. We are going to respect what the jury's decision is, and we are not going to subject them to any displays of emotion, whether it be from the gallery or the parties. If anyone believes they are not capable of following this instruction, I'd ask you to step outside at this time. Mrs. Adelson also as well, once the verdict is read, again, I'm going to advise you, do not have any displays of emotion as best you can. You are to control yourself. Do you understand?
And again, that's Judge Stephen Everett giving instructions to what has been known as the peanut gallery throughout all of this. You know, when that verdict is read, telling them to display proper court decorum, do not have displays of emotion, telling Donna Adelson the same thing. He's given that instruction to her throughout the trial.
Right, and there have been moments where the defense or attorneys have asked the judge to take action for what they considered inappropriate comments from, you know, the so-called peanut gallery. So the judge has kept a tight leash on everybody in that courtroom, try to keep things flowing smoothly, and just kind of having that preamble. And so he's going to sit down, and as you said, he's already taken the seat, and now we're just waiting for the jury.
Absolutely, it's been a long day for the jury too.
Seated when the jurors come in this particular time.
And the jury is about to enter the courtroom again. They've been going at this from about 10 this morning is when those closing statements started. Both sides had 2 hours to give their closing statements. And then again, it went to the jury for deliberations about 4:18 this afternoon. So again, it took them a little over 3 hours.
And for those who may just be following this trial for the first time tonight, again, we're going to be listening for the verdicts on 3 different charges: first-degree murder, solicitation, and conspiracy to commit murder. First-degree murder, if she's found guilty, is a mandatory life sentence. The other 2 charges, it comes with a mandatory 30-year sentence, or rather maximum 30-year sentence for the judge, I believe, to decide.
And again, this is all involving the murder of law professor Dan Markell. Again, July 18th, 2014, he was gunned down in his driveway of his Benton Hills home.
If the jury foreperson could please rise.
So let's go ahead and listen.
Yeah, let's go in. We're hearing the jury. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
Yeah.
If you please can hand the verdict form to the bailiff. Having reviewed the verdict form, it is in its proper order. At this time, I will publish the verdict. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1 of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself. Count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 2 of the indictment: conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count 3. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 3 of the indictment: solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And it is signed and dated by the foreperson. One moment. Members of the jury, the bailiff will escort you to the jury room. Mrs. Adelson, while this was not the outcome I'm sure that you desired, there will not be any further outbursts in front of the jury. If you cannot control yourself, I am going to have to determine if you will be removed from the remainder of this process. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
Do you need a moment to collect yourself? Before the jurors are brought back in, we will take a brief 2-minute break. Please give her tissues if she needs them.
A very emotional scene inside courtroom 3G tonight in the Leon County Courthouse, where around 7:42 this evening, Donna Adelson was convicted on all 3 counts levied against her: murder, conspiracy, and solicitation.
Right now, the jury has been taken out of the courtroom. As you heard, Judge Everett telling Donna Adelson to control herself. If she's not able to control her emotions, they talked about potentially having to remove her from the courtroom so they can continue on with those proceedings. You can just even feel the emotion and the intensity from that courtroom right now.
As soon as the first count was guilty, you could hear her scream, "Oh my God."
Just gasp, yes.
Really, more of a gasp than a scream. The typical procedure, the defense can ask for the jury to be polled, where each juror would have to verbally tell the judge that this is their verdict. So we're probably going to see that once the jury comes back. And I know there is some more comments going on in the courtroom. Perhaps we could listen in if there is anything going on there. Okay, they may be bringing the jury back in again.
Guys, in the back, if you can hear what's going on, can you just let us know if they do bring the jury back in? Thank you so much. Also, let's talk a little bit about the jury makeup. There was some concern, even from the beginning of this trial, that they wouldn't be able to seat a jury, which they obviously did. 12 people, 2 alternates, jurors coming from lots of different backgrounds. A married truck driver, a single nurse, a retiree, a local business owner, a project manager, 8 men, 6 women on this jury.
And we can hear them filing back
Members
into
of the
the
jury,
courtroom.
before I discharge you for this evening, I am briefly going to poll you concerning whether your verdict is unanimous at the request of one of the parties. When you hear your last name, please appropriately respond.
And the judge, or rather the feed here from the courtroom, is going to be muted as he calls their names. The privacy of the jury, a very important part of a high-profile trial like this. We can see Adelson's legal team there. That's her attorney Josh Zellman and Jackie Fulford. You can see Attorney Zellman there trying to console his client, who becomes the 5th person convicted in Dan Markel's death, the 4th person to hear their name called, or rather hear their verdict by a jury.
Absolutely. And again, you can just tell a very emotional Donna Adelson right there, learning her fate. Again, if you're just joining us, Donna Adelson has been found guilty on all 3 counts in the murder trial of Dan Markel.
And this is a big win for the Markel family, of course. When you're dealing with these sorts of cases, a range of emotions. This is a win for Prosecutor Georgia Kappelman, Chief Assistant State Attorney Georgia Kappelman, and Sarah Catherine Dugan, her co-counsel in this case. They have spent years and years of their lives. Many investigators in the state attorney's office have spent 11 years to be exact. And so it's we're going to hopefully hear from the prosecution, perhaps the defense team in gaggles outside in the hallway in just a few moments. The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, so to speak.
Discharged, please listen carefully. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and consideration of this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges that are enjoyed by jurors. No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and votes should remain their private affair as long as they wish it. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. Although you are at liberty to speak with anyone about your deliberations, you are also at liberty to refuse to speak to anyone. A request to discuss either your verdict or your deliberations may come from those who are simply curious, from those who might seek to find fault with you, from the media, from attorneys, or elsewhere. It will be up to you to decide whether to preserve your privacy as a juror. With that being said, I want to extend my thanks on behalf of the entire Second Circuit for your service in this matter. You are discharged. Have a good evening.
And again, jurors finding this verdict after about 3 hours. They've had a very long day. They started about 10 o'clock this morning with those closing arguments. The state's case the entire time saying
as to the jury's verdict, with the jury having found the defendant guilty of the 3 charges of the indictment, is the defense asking for a pre-sentence report on counts 2 and 3. As to count 1, the penalty is statutory, and essentially there is no modification for it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. Pre-sentence investigation and report is ordered by the court as to counts 2 and 3. As to count 1, is there any reason why we cannot proceed to sentencing on this matter?
Your Honor, we would request an opportunity to ensure that our client is okay before we proceed to sentencing. It's my understanding that Charlie Adelson wasn't sentenced right away, and we're asking for the same courtesy.
Very well. The court then will set a separate sentencing date.
May I inquire whether the family members that are present would like to give victim impact now or at the future date?
Go ahead.
That is Prosecutor Georgia Kappelman conferring with the Markell family. It does sound like sentencing will not happen tonight. We just heard the defense counsel request the same courtesy, as they put it, that Charlie Adelson received when he was found guilty on all counts. So Ruth Markell, Dan's mother, is being walked up, perhaps
to give a statement, maybe?
I'm not sure if it's okay. It does sound like we're going to hear from Markell for a victim impact statement.
Right there in front of the lectern.
Watch your step. I'm going to have you step back.
If you please can identify yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Ruth Mark.
That way, 'cause you're
Sorry?
I'm worried you're going to trip. Just
Okay,
that's fine.
I already did. My name is Ruth Markell.
You may give your impact statement, ma'am.
Thank you, Judge Everett. To the Honorable Judge Everett, my name is Ruth Markell. I am the mother of the late Dan Markell. I stand before you today to express the profound sadness and grief that Dan's family and I have endured since his tragic murder. We have lost a treasure. My son Dan's life was cut tragically short at 41 years old. For 11 years, we have been forced to a life filled with unimaginable pain and heartbreak. Dan's father Phil and his sister Shelley share in this unending sorrow. Dan was a devoted father, brother, and son. Dan's life was marked by his devotion to family, education, and community. He was a loving, caring, and inspiring person. His academic journey included studying politics and philosophy at Harvard University, earning a master's degree later in political theory from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and Emmanuel College in Cambridge, and later going back to Harvard to get a law degree. Dan was a prolific scholar and did start, co-founded the influential Prof's blog. His energy, drive, and sociability greatly enriched the FSU College of Law. Dan's life was filled with passion, music, dance, sports, travel, and people. But of all my son's accomplishments, however, I am most proud of the devoted father Danny was to his two sons, Benjamin and Lincoln. Dan was present, loving, and supportive, always putting his children's well-being first. He regularly attended the boys' daycares, reading with them. His office was filled with their drawings, and his home, his living room, filled with their toys. Dan was the boys' hero, and they have been forced to grow up without a father. Dan's murder has shattered our family and caused deep, permanent pain. This was a particularly senseless crime, and the murder was particularly insensible. It was not revenge. Dan was a law-abiding and respectful citizen, an active father, and a living son. His life was devoted to teaching and helping others. The pain and suffering of Dan's murder goes well beyond other families too. That is why I wrote the book, The Unveiling, a mother's reflection on murder, grief, and trial life. In my unrelenting grief, I turned to advocacy, to feel purpose, and to help others with these tragic losses. I have found meaning and comfort to connect with others who want to serve justice. To all the community of journalists, TV programs, podcasters, Tallahassee communities, and the allies who have put their hearts in keeping Danny's story alive, we are full of thanks. To law enforcement and prosecutors, our gratitude is beyond for their dedicated, careful perseverance in seeking justice for Danny and our family. If Tallahassee is known for football, Tallahassee should be known for the prosecution and for law enforcement. They have done an outstanding job. These extraordinary efforts underscore the brutal truth of our family's story. Danny's murder was orchestrated by his former mother-in-law, Donna Adelson, and other co-conspirators, and is a crime of cruelty. It is a murder of grief, a murder of selfishly prioritizing one's own desires over what is just or right. And at its core, this was a murder of convenience. So that one grandmother could live closer to her grandchildren, she killed their father and ripped the children from the other grandparents' lives. Donna Adelson's crimes against Dan began long before his murder. She belittled Dan in front of his children. She spread lies about it and contributed to a brutal separation between Dan and Wendy. She rented the house, and Dan came home, and he found that Wendy and the boys were gone with most of their belongings. He called this devastation Pearl Harbor. Donna's eagerness for Wendy to divorce Dan and to relocate to South Florida led her to increasingly devise desperate schemes. Despite these efforts, the court ruled that Wendy could not move the boys away from their loving father. Failing to achieve her goal through legal means, Donna finally resorted to orchestrating Dan's murder. She plotted, planned, and paid for his murder. Donna's crimes led to further devastation. Her middle son, Charlie, was convicted and sentenced to a life in prison for his role in facilitating Danny's murder for hire. Can you imagine a mother involving a son to complete a murder? Donna's eldest son, Rob, an honest and decent man, is estranged from the family. And her younger child, Wendy, has decided once again to relocate to another state. Her actions and those of her co-conspirators have caused children to lose their parents. Catherine McManus, Alfreda Garcia, and Charlie Adelson, also convicted, are all convicted for life and have lost access to their children. Prior to her arrest, Donna's recorded phone calls with Charlie reveal their lack of a moral compass or capacity for self-reflection. She blames external forces for her family's curse. They're outside of her, but she is the curse, and lashes out angrily at witnesses who took the brave step to testify. Her modus operandi has always been to run from Tallahassee and then to try to flee to Vietnam. For our family, there is no such prospect for escape. Danny's absence, and that leaves a hole at the center of our lives, no matter where we go. Yet Dan's murder was not enough for Donna. His death was not enough. Danny had to be fully erased from his beloved sons. The boy's last name was ever changed, an extraordinary decision to excise the Markell name from Phil's only grandsons who shared his last name. And after the first arrests were made, Donna didn't allow the Markell family to have access for over 6 years. It was only when there was a phenomenal Tallahassee advocacy group that passed the Markell Act. The passage of this bill was immediately followed by our first invitation to see the boys after the arrest. The door only cracked open. Despite these efforts, we remain excluded from the boys' lives. We were not at their bar mitzvahs or graduations. We have extremely highly choreographed visits and communications. We only wait for the day that Benjamin and Lincoln will visit their father and his grave in his father's history and his grave in Toronto. We want nothing more. The facts of Danny's murder, are difficult to swallow. The experiences Phil, Shelley, and I have been forced to suffer are profound as homicide survivors and victims of the criminal system. The lives of Danny's 2 sons, our grandchildren, were forever turned upside down by this crime. Benjamin and Lincoln were only preschoolers when their father was murdered, and now they are forced to confront and try to understand the unthinkable crimes of murder and the Adelsons' involvement. Our lives will never return to normal. For those who loved Danny and for those who Danny loved, there is no escape from the wicked effects of what Donna Adelson set in motion, carried out, and paid for, and for many years enjoyed the aftermath of. Donna Adelson has caused immense devastation and an untimely, undeserved murder through her actions. While no trial or verdict can ever heal the profound wounds caused by Dan's murder, justice must be served. I respectfully ask the court to impose the maximum sentence on Donna Adelson. Her lack of cooperation and remorse throughout the case demands justice, the justice that Dan's life and memory fully deserve. We are immensely grateful to the court for its careful and compassionate deliberation. Respectively, Ruth Markell.
Thank you, Ms. Markell. Are there any other victim impact statements this evening?
One more, Judge.
If you please could tell us your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Phil Markell. I'm Danny's father. Judge Everett, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the impact of Donna Adelson's actions on my families and the families of so many others. While this victim impact statement is addressed to you, Your Honor, it is also intended for the Adelson family, Harvey, Charlie, Wendy, and particularly Donna. I would like them to understand and reflect on the deep and irreparable damage they have caused. The pain that they have caused my family is obvious and permanent, but they have also caused lifelong harm to their own immediate family and so many other families and children around. Donna's selfishness, cruelty, and complete disrespect for human life, along with that of her co-conspirators, have left families forever broken. Louis Rivera, his children have no father. Catherine Magbanawa and Sigfredo Garcia, their children have no parents. Charlie Adelson, his son, Roman, has no father. Rob Adelson and his wife and their 2 children have lost their uncle and grandparents. Shelley and Ian, my daughter, their 3 children, my grandchildren, are left without an uncle and are separated from their cousins. Of course, their heinous and callous actions have left me, Ruth, and Shelley without our Danny, and Ben and Lincoln without their father. For anyone to commit such a cold-blooded, unprovoked act of murder is horrific. For Donna, someone who claims to care so much about Ben and Lincoln, her sun shines. Her actions are beyond comprehension. She has harmed forever the people she claims to have loved. In the Jewish custom, we have an expression to always wish others to live to 120 years of age. For Donna, I wish her to live to 120, alone in her jail cell. I wish that every day of her remaining days she thinks about the harm she has caused to so many, especially those 2 boys she claims to have loved so much. For these reasons, Your Honor, I ask the court sentence Donna Adelson to the maximum possible sentence. And my only short question to Donna, was it worth it? Respectfully, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Markell. Are there any other matters that the court needs to address this evening, Ms. Koppelman?
No, Your Honor.
With the PSI being ordered, the court will pronounce the sentence as to counts 2 and 3 after it's been completed. The parties have had an opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation report and make any objections if they believe they need to. As to the 3 counts that the jury has found the defendant guilty of, I will adjudicate her guilty at this time, but the sentence will be pronounced as to the 3 counts at a later date. She is remanded for sentencing at this time. Lieutenant Henry, please notify the commander at the jail that the appropriate screening needs to take place to ensure that the defendant is in an area where she is not subject to any self-harm. For a case management date coming up, what would the parties request?
Ms. Dugan's October court date, Your Honor.
I believe that is 10/14. Is that correct, Ms. Dugan?
Yes, sir.
October 14th for case management at 2:30 p.m.
All right, you have listened to some incredibly powerful words from Dan Markel's parents, Phil and Ruth Markel, giving their impact statements. This happens a lot after trials where victims are allowed to go up and express their feelings to either the defendant or the judge. And it really felt like, for both of them, you felt the 11 years come out in these two statements.
It did feel like a climax almost of those 11 years. They've given victim impact statements in the prior trials. Oftentimes, as they mentioned, sentencing was delayed and they were on Zoom when they gave those statements, as we see Mrs. Adelson walking out of the courtroom now.
And they did say to make sure that she was in an area where there could be no self-harm. That has been, unfortunately, a concern throughout this entire trial, her mental health and mental state.
So the last time we heard that type of victim impact statement, as I was saying, was over Zoom. So for it to happen just moments after the verdict was read aloud, and to have that split screen of Miss Markel speaking to the judge, and you could see Donna Adelson to the right reacting to every word.
I think let's too be very clear about, and you can tell from these statements, two families are grieving.
That is fair to say.
Today,
now.
Two families, and you could tell in these statements, well, really multiple families from what the Markels are saying. So many children without their parents. Families ripped apart. Yes, there was justice in their minds for Dan Markel today, but really they said so much has been torn apart because of this.
Yeah, 11 years of investigating, and Mr. Markel, not just mentioning his own family torn apart, as he said, but Luis Rivera, Catherine McBanois, who testified in this trial against Donna Adelson, saying even though she's been convicted for life, she wants to see her kids again and had cooperated with the state as a state witness. So many families ruined by this, and that's part of why I believe this case has captured so many folks in the country paying attention to, just the deep focus on a bitter divorce and the two kids at the center of it all as well.
Well, and seeing that